Welcome to r/petty revenge, where OP makes his bully barf his guts out. Our next Reddit post is from Matahago. I was born with a congenital heart disease and I had surgery as a kid. I'm completely okay, but sports was obviously not my thing. I was small, skinny, and clumsy because I never really could do the typical outdoor stuff like most kids. I got teased and bullied and all that. Typical for a geeky kid who doesn't excel with a football. In high school, we had a mildly problematic PE teacher. A typical sports dude who would make fun of the slower kids. I still remember how he ordered my overweight friend to do a gymnastics jump from a trampoline over a stool, which he obviously couldn't do, and my friend fell so hard he cracked his head. I found peace with myself long before, and mostly didn't care and just took it. But it was stupid, and I hated how he always encouraged the jock culture of making fun of the nerds. We would constantly do basketball or soccer. The thing about my specific condition is I don't do explosive and reactive sports at all, so I would have to sit down every few minutes to catch my breath. You would think, what's wrong with that? But I was shamed about being the weakling of the class every week. I like sports though, a lot. I was just always told by my parents and doctors to take it easy. And growing up, I noticed that I had no problem whatsoever with endurance and steady, long-distance sports. As long as I don't go into the red, I could keep it up for quite a while. So it's not a surprise that I fell in love with road cycling when I first saw the Tour de France on TV. I was super skinny, couldn't sprint, but I could climb a long mountain any day, pacing myself and blowing nearly anyone off my wheel on endurance. I got myself a road bike and never told anyone at school about my rides. So we had a class sports day, and there was a bus arranged to take us to the top of the mountain about an hour away, where we would go on a hike. Our PE teacher said that if anyone wants, he would cycle up the mountain there and we could join him on the climb instead of the hike. I was the only one to volunteer. He was surprised and commented something to the effect of, "Keeping up," and "I'm not gonna wait for you." But I insisted. He couldn't have known that I was more than capable of climbing that mountain because he only saw me struggling with sports with him. He also couldn't have known that I lived on that mountain, literally starting a kilometer from my house. I'd done that climb over 100 times, and I knew it blind. I knew my pacing, and while I was no pro, I could probably drop my PE teacher at will there. For the cyclist out there, the climb is 12.5 kilometers at a 6.9 gradient, super regular. For non-cyclists, it was a perfect climb for a lightweight rider with good pacing and stamina. So, the day arrives and I did my warm-up, nutrition, and everything as if it was a life-or-death mountaintop time trial. And I rock up at my school in my full racing kit and my racing bike. I was 17, weighed 55 kilograms, and totally prepared. He was a typical, middle-aged, overconfident ex-soccer player, probably weighing 90 kilograms, on a standard mountain bike. A super perfect situation. He sets a relatively hard pace on the 10-kilometer flat before the climb, and I don't speak or take the front. I take my good time to get back on his wheel after intersections, and he probably thinks that he'll drop me the second that we start going uphill. Then the climb starts. It becomes very apparent to me, but not to him, that he's near his limit. And even then, we were going 5 kilometers per hour slower than what I could do on that mountain. But I don't attack him. This wouldn't be satisfying. Instead, I start bantering how someone's getting dropped today, and it would be embarrassing if the whole class sees how I beat him. Then I take over the pace and slowly start turning the screws on him. I went only a little faster, then a bit more. I knew after about 3 kilometers he was in the red. So I ease off, keeping him just slightly over his limit for the next half an hour. I wanted to make him suffer, but without dropping him. I let him recover for a bit if he starts looking too bad. But then I would slowly push the tempo up to make it as painful to him as possible. It was a Tour de France level mind games. I don't think I've ever enjoyed myself on a bike more. We made it near the top together, and I let it rip on the last 300 meters or so, and it was the typical humiliation attack that every amateur group ride cyclist knows. He dropped like a stone. I got my revenge and was very happy with myself. He said something about his heavy bike, and I kept my mouth shut. But it got better. At the top, he was clearly dead. So much so that he had to vomit in the parking lot. And even if only a few classmates saw it, everyone knew. He had to sit out the hike after, and I just quietly sat there with him because I didn't need to do the hike like he promised. And I just looked at him, enjoying the sweet revenge. I didn't say anything after that, nor did he. He never made any comments to me in PE class again. So the lesson, don't bully your students. They might surprise you. Our next Reddit post is from Altruistic Dot. Back in 2018, I married my now ex-husband. He came from money and grew up in the upper class. He never lacked anything. I'm the complete opposite. Grew up extremely poor and learned very early on that you have to work hard and have your own back. We met at his uncle's restaurant where I was a server. He came in one day to eat and I was his server. He asked for my number and we hit it off. Or so I thought. After we got married, his true colors were quick to follow. A complete narcissist. Actually diagnosed. This story takes place when I meet his sister and her boyfriend for the first time. We pick them up from the airport, and as he introduces us, she eagerly says, "OMG, she's totally Jordan's." Her boyfriend agrees, and my husband chuckles. I'm like, what is Jordan's? And my husband tells me it means that I have great style. I thank his sister for the compliment and think nothing of it. Throughout their visit, they start calling me Jordan's, and I accept it as a cute nickname. Like, great, they like me. That was until one night we decided to get drunk. We popped open some wine, and as we drank more and more, they started commenting on how terrible and cheap my wine was. I kinda shook it off as they decided to play stupid drinking games. Truth or Dare was one of them. My husband's sister dared him to tell me what Jordan's was. They were all laughing like chickens and totally drunk. He says, "Jordan's is the name that we give homeless people who have swag." I'm completely dumbfounded as they all burst out into more laughter. I wasn't as drunk as everyone else, and I just sat there trying not to cry. Fast forward to the next day, and I asked my hungover husband what the hell their problem was. He started saying, "It's just a joke, don't take it seriously." I didn't let it go and kept pressing the matter. He finally told me, "I may have told them about your upbringing and how you're not like us, just to prepare them." I was in complete shock. To prepare them? For me? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I spent the next few days to myself, making excuses, staying busy. My husband had bought an expensive bottle of tequila that we were supposed to drink the night before they left. The day before last, they went on a hike, which I excused myself from. Time for a little payback. Let's test your elite palates. I videotaped myself swapping out the expensive bottle of tequila for Salsa Gold. In the video, I sit back and enjoy shots of tequila talking about my upbringing, the love and closeness I share with my family, and how fortunate I was to have grown up not becoming a disgusting piece of garbage snob like the family I married into. I mean, I went off. I got drunk and went to bed by the time they got back. That way, I didn't have to engage, and they didn't know that I was drunk off $200 worth of tequila. The last night, I watched these idiots sip the tequila like wine and comment on how distinguished and delicate it was. They mentioned you could taste the quality. I'm sitting there enjoying every word that came out of their mouths. I then get up, connect my phone to the TV, and say, "I put something together for you guys to say thank you for your visit." I hit play and watch as they started to understand what just happened and what they were drinking. Satisfied, I started gathering shot glasses off the table while the echo of total silence hit the walls. They said nothing to me. I went to bed only to have my husband wake me up in outrage, telling me his sister was crying because I humiliated them. I just say, "Yeah, sucks, doesn't it?" They left the next day and never spoke to me again. Even when we visited their parents, they all live in Europe, she refused to come see us. Safe to say, I'm happily divorced. Down in the comments, we have a similar story from Claustrophobic Toes. My ex had a job as an assistant winemaker in California. My ex humiliated me in front of the main winemaker when I couldn't tell the difference between honeydew melon and cantaloupe notes in Chardonnay. He invited his best friends from college over to impress them. Side note, they had all gotten into medical school and he didn't. I was in charge of pouring and serving the 3 reds that he had worked on: Pinot Noir, Merlot, and Cabernet Sauvignon. I poured the glasses in the kitchen where no one could see me. For each glass, I poured the Merlot. I listened to him go on and on about all the subtle differences in the wines, and his friends bought the whole show. Only later did I reveal to him that it was all the same bottle. He was furious, but never questioned my palate again. Our next Reddit post is from Greenish Chicken. So I'm a 22-year-old guy, and I had to take the metro to go somewhere today, and it was pretty full. But I noticed there was a 16-year-old-ish teenager taking up 5 spaces with his bag, and him laying down, and he was playing music loudly with his phone. I politely asked him to move his bag so I could sit, and he rolled his eyes, smirked, and said, "Nah, I don't think so, man." This annoyed me greatly, and if it weren't for his phone and the music, I probably wouldn't have escalated harder, but I just grabbed his bag and then threw it somewhere further along the train. Of course, he instantly got mad and asked me what the hell I was doing and that I better go get his bag. Then I just told him that he could either go fight me or get his bag himself. Unfortunately, I'm 90 kilograms and pretty strong, and he was some lanky teenager. I don't think he expected that, but after 5 seconds, he went to get his bag. I took the space and invited other standing people to go sit down. He came back to no space and started yelling at us, and I reminded him again that the only way I would move were if he would start a fight with me. Again, he seemed to consider it, but ended up storming away eventually. I get that I'm kind of a bully in this situation, but man, some people just need to learn that the world doesn't cater to them. Yeah, OP, it is true that you were the bully here, but honestly, some people need to be bullied. Some people just need a solid punch in the face sometimes. Unfortunately, I wish the world didn't work that way, but it does. Our next Reddit post is from Adorable Calendar. I work and live on a cruise ship. Depending on the route, we dock every 2 to 4 days. I have one roommate and we have bunk beds with me on top. I'm a performer, so we get to pick our roommates, and my roommate never told me that she snored. Very loudly, too. I tried earplugs. Nope. I have big over-the-ear headphones and was playing music, and I can still hear her. I can even hear her over the ship docking, and our room is near the anchor. It's loud. Her snoring is not only loud, it's concerning too because she chokes in her sleep. The first time I heard it, I almost fell out of my bunk to rush down and check on her, thinking she was having some kind of medical emergency. I talked to her to see if we could come up with a solution, and she basically shot me down because she thought that she was sleeping fine, so it wasn't a big deal. Also, it's really hard to change roommates unless something major happens, and snoring isn't considered one of those, despite me voicing my lack of sleep. I did my best to live with it, but I was fed up when I got home with a long workday, and I had to be up at 6 a.m. The snoring only allowed me 2 hours of sleep. So I decided to record her. The next day, when I was going to the room for a break, she was there and said that she was going to take a nap. I was like, okay, and as she laid down, I started playing her snoring. She immediately shot up and looked at me like I was insane, when all I did was stare at her and she asked me to turn it off. I just said, well, this is you snoring, and you said it's not a big deal, so why should I? She gets really mad, says a few choice words, and leaves the room. For about 3 days, whenever she tries to rest, I played her own snoring back. Finally, I got called in for a meeting with our manager because my roommate was mad at me. I explained my side of the story, because my roommate failed to mention that she refused to address her snoring and made it seem like I was just playing loud noises for the heck of it. My roommate was angry that the manager didn't fully take her side, and even told her she was being difficult by not trying to address her snoring and brushing off my need for sleep. We ended up getting moved in with new roommates, though. Our next Reddit post is from Obvious Shallot. I was visiting some friends in another city, and I dropped my AirPods in the back of a lift leaving a bar. I realized the next morning, and I sent the guy a lost item report. He claims he doesn't have them. I go back home and forget about it. Until about a day later, I see a Find My that they were being charged and actively used. I see them moving all around the city as a driver would. Now, I'm not usually a spiteful person, but that was brazen theft. Unlucky for him, I had some free time, and 2 weekends later, I tracked him down in a car with those same friends. Find My led us to a Chuck E. Cheese, where we found his car in the lot. I explained the situation to a security guard and showed him a picture of the Lyft driver. The security guard led us right to him, and I asked him, "Are you so-and-so?" To which he nervously responded, "Yes." I just bluntly said, "You stole my AirPods." His family had to all leave the Chuck E. Cheese to his car parked in the lot, and I got to watch him awkwardly put the AirPods back in the case and give them to me. I felt bad, but come on, doing that is insane. Down in the comments, Cookie Truth saying what I was thinking, I couldn't imagine wanting to steal something that was inside someone's ears. Yeah, gross. Down in the comments, we have a similar story from 10th Plain West. My mom drove for many years, but decided that she couldn't drive in LA in her old age, so she sold her car. She took Uber for a while, but that gets expensive really quickly, so she switched to public transportation. One day, I went to go visit her as she wasn't answering her phone. Thankfully, she was fine, but she told me that she lost her phone earlier that day. Since we share locations with each other, I was able to locate her phone on my Find My app. I jumped in my car and chased it down. It was a struggle due to LA traffic and the fact that it kept moving non-stop. I finally realized that it was on a bus and jumped out of my car and asked the bus driver if someone found a phone. He said no, and it was a packed bus on a busy street, so I went back to my mom's house without her phone. I told her what happened and showed her the phone's location on my map. She exclaimed that it was following the exact route on the bus she takes from near her home, and it was only a few stops away. We went to the bus stop and waited until it arrived, and she stepped in to ask the same driver I saw earlier if anyone had turned in her phone. He told her no as well, but I realized I can play a sound on her phone from my app. Lo and behold, the driver had the phone in his bag, and he had no choice but to retrieve it and give it back to her. That was r/petty revenge, and if you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.